Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Inside the Birds TV with Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan, presented, of course, by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. We're going to stop talking about Jalen Hurts for just a few minutes and focus on the other side of the football. And to do that, we bring in a member of the ITB family. There he is, former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quintin Mikell, who is also the co-star of the Q&A show with Jason Avant on the Inside the Birds platform. Q, I mean, I know you want to talk some defense, right? I mean, we're all this Jalen Hurts this, wide receiver that, but the defense, Adam and I, we just did a recent podcast where we were going through, we were reviewing the last season, previewing the offseason moves, and when you look at the Eagles defense, you think, wow, the two starting safeties are free agents. You know, the other corner, Steven Nelson opposite Darius Slay, is a free agent, and then linebacker is an area where there's a lot of question marks too. So it feels like this defense has a lot of work to be done. You feel that way?
Yes, absolutely. I think the bigger point is whether or not we're going to have a new defensive coordinator next year. I mean, that right there could set off a whole different turn of events. So a chain of events. So I think either way, whoever, if Gannon's back or if we have a new defensive coordinator next year, it's going to be a completely different defense. There's going to be a lot of guys probably not coming back, which is crazy to say.
Q. So speaking of that, did you notice with Gannon, because we were all critical on our shows about what the defense did the first half. Did you see growth in the second half from the players inside the scheme based on what you saw?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a lot of growth. I saw growth in Gannon's play calling. I saw growth in the secondary, starting to get more confidence in their movement, starting to make more plays. The linebackers, actually, the linebacking core, to me, probably had the biggest growth. Early on, they looked kind of lost out there, and towards the mid to the end of the season, they started to really pick it up and understand where to be. And I think the unfortunate part of that is we saw them kind of revert in that last playoff game back to what they were doing before. So they were trajecting in the right direction, and then it was all of a sudden it was like boom, went back to where they were. So if I'm a defensive coordinator, if I'm Gannon, I'm gonna say, listen, we're not even gonna look at that last game. We're not even gonna talk about it. We're gonna focus on what we did well in that midpoint of the season and work on that and continue to progress from there.
Yeah, we're going to talk about linebackers from a personnel standpoint in this show. I wanted to ask you, though, from a more overarching philosophy, because we get asked this question a lot, and it's a good question about whether the coach should tailor the personnel to the scheme or vice versa. But I want to ask you from Jim Johnson's standpoint. I mean, you guys always had different players coming in and out, as the NFL is. Although I would probably say Andy Reid probably emphasized for his defense for Jim specific players, types of players. But can you think of a time where Jim, from year to year, may have done things differently to acclimate to the players that were coming in?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the best things that Jim did was he stayed within his system. He stayed within the way he liked to call the game. But he also understood what some guys could do and what some guys couldn't, especially the linebacker position. Like, for instance, when we had Mark Semino, he wasn't really a big downhill type of player. So his play calling changed a little bit. And then when we brought Trot back, the play calling changed even more, where Trot was able to get downhill. Trot wasn't as good as, in coverage. So the play calling kind of mimicked that. So we did a lot more Mike 1 type plays where we're sending the mic back, or so we just let Trot just run through the middle and wreak havoc, and everyone's playing man on the outside. So I do think that Jim really did play to the player's strengths. I mean, guys like Keith Adams, who was a special teams guy, and he came in and ended up almost making to play the Pro Bowl for one season because he was playing in such a defense that was kind of a position that was kind of tailored for him and his skill set.
So let me quickly, Adam, follow up with him on that. As we related to Gannon here, do you think he should be vocal about, because he does things differently? Obviously, we saw at the end of the year, he's doing a lot of disguise, deception, moving parts. Do you think he should be more vocal about the type of player he wants for his back end? Or should this team, which has drafted on the defensive line well over the years and had that identity, stick to that identity, pass rusher, cornerback, and have Jonathan adjust to that?
That's a good question. For me personally, I would think if you want to be successful as a defensive coordinator in this league, and you want to win games, you want to win championships, and you have a certain system, a certain style of players, and you need to be able to acquire those players. Now, like I said with I think Jim was had so much experience that he was able to tailor his defense to fit each person's kind of strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Gannon's still kind of learning his way. He's first year rookie defensive coordinator. So I think it's more important for him to get the kind of players that he wants. And it's more important for his growth to understand I got to stand up on the table and fight for the guys that I want because I want to be successful. I want to make sure that my defense is not the reason why we lose games. And so in order to do that, I need the players that I need. So he definitely needs to go into those meetings and say, no, I want this guy. I want this type of guy. I want this type of player, whatever it may be. He's got to stand up for what he wants.
Well, speaking of that, that's where I wanted to go. So you've watched these linebackers. We know that Jim Johnson or Andy Reid too, they like faster linebackers, right?
Yeah.
Didn't always work. Matt McCoy's of the world didn't work. Michael Kendricks did. But now you look at what they have. T.J. Edwards can tackle, but he's not the biggest guy in the world. Singleton is also not the biggest guy in the world. Would you like to see bigger linebackers going forward?
No, actually, I don't. The way the game is nowadays, everybody's running 11 personnel sets. Everyone's running receivers and tight ends down the field. So you got to have linebackers that are able to run. You have to have linebackers that are able to cover. And so I'm okay with our linebacking core. This last game thrown out, I'm okay with the way they were trajecting. Obviously, we need a little bit more dynamic playmakers in the middle, maybe one or two guys there. But overall, I don't think that our linebacking core ended up being a huge problem this year throughout the course of the year. I think they were struggling earlier, and I think they just got better. And so, me personally, I think you need to stick with having smaller, faster linebackers to be able to play this game today.
Obviously, if you want a linebacker who's athletic and can run, but also tackle, those are a rare breed. So then you have to at least put the kind of, draft capital or free agency capital into it. So I would imagine the Eagles will probably try to do that one way or another. Although I think we could all collectively rule out the idea of a first round pick being used on a linebacker. But the second round's kind of fertile territory there for certain guys. Do you see them? I mean, do you think it's imperative that they at least improve the depth and talent there?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you stick, so for me, I think if you stick with this system and you stick with smaller, faster linebackers, you've got to get some D linemen that can take up space. You got to get some guys that can keep those guards and those tackles from getting downfield. So if you stick with the system that they've been running, I would invest heavily in some space eaters and the inside down there. And Fletcher's been great for a number of years, but this system isn't really geared toward what he likes to do. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with Fletch, but I think long term, I think the best way, if you're going to stay with the linebacking core and stay with guys that are shorter and faster, we got to get some space eaters in the middle there. So
Q, let's get to the position you played in safety, and a guy that Geoff and I like, particularly Geoff, is Marcus Epps. Have you seen enough of him, do you think, in order to think he could be a starter next season?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I think when he came in the game, every time he was in the game, you knew he was on the field. He was flying around. He was making plays on the ball. He was in the right position. He was playing with speed and athleticism and aggression, and that's what you need. And really, the only thing for me that he hasn't shown is the playing experience, and it's been coming slowly. And I think when he was on the field, I think he was a far upgrade, not a far, but he was an upgrade over Wilson. Well, not Wilson.
It was Anthony Harris.
Harris.
Rodney?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He was definitely an upgrade over Harris, in my opinion.
Yeah, it always seemed like you couldn't get through a game without hearing Marcus Epps' name, but sometimes you can go through an entire game without hearing Anthony Harris's name. It just seemed to flash at times, Marcus Epps. In general, Q, are you noticing we call the copycat league, the Belichickian effect on the NFL so far seems to be that teams are it's not just about having two corners anymore. It seems like teams are really loading up on secondary talent. And in fact, the Dolphins, remember, they have they signed Xavier Howard to a huge contract. Then they signed Byron Jones to a huge contract, and then they used a first-round pick on a cornerback. And you see a lot of teams now playing 4, 5, 6 corners at a time and big nickels and things like that. Is that the way the league is? Do you think that's sort of wildcatish and that it'll be gone in a year or two, or do you think that's here to stay?
I think it's here to stay. I think a lot with so many offensive-minded head coaches, so many owners wanting to put seats in the stands, and let's face it, I mean, what all the teams in the playoffs are pass-heavy teams. So I think it's here to stay. We had the one anomaly with the Titans, and that's because Derrick Henry's a complete animal. So I think that it's going to be here to stay. I think this is what the game is now. I think this is what the NFL in general is wanting. I think this is what fans want. They like seeing passes, and they like seeing the ball down the field. And so I think it's going to be here to stay. It's exciting for the game. I actually like it. I mean, I love watching the Titans play, but I mean, there was nothing better than that Sunday night game, and it was all passing, hardly any defense. And I'm a defensive guy, but that game was amazing for me.
Well, that's what I want to bring up. So you as a safety, both teams' defenses got taken to the woodshed quite a bit in that game. But from a watchability standpoint, it was great. But you as a safety, if you're playing in this game and you're seeing the offense go up and down, what can you do? Like what can you do as a defensive player or a defensive coach to try to slow that onslaught down from Kansas City or Buffalo?
That's a tough one because I mean, there's sometimes and there's just some games where nothing you're going to do is going to work. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I think the biggest thing to affect a game when that happens is you got to start getting pressure on the quarterback. You've got to start getting hands on the receivers. You've got to get in press coverage, double if you have to. You've got to start messing with the timing. And I think that was the biggest thing that I saw in those games, that even though the offense was just kind of flying up and down the field, I never saw really either defense really take a chance and put a guy in press. And I understand why. I mean, there's playmakers all over the field, but if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to take a chance in press or pressure or change up your coverages, it's going to be just like that game. It's going to be up and down the field.
All right, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB and get 56 to 1 odds on any NFL team. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets if that team wins. Promo code ITB for 56 to 1 odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's get back to the safety position because both safeties are free agents, so you don't know if they'll be back. Marcus Smith will be back. We think he deserves at least a shot to start. The Eagles have not really had, since Malcolm maybe, the type of safety who you see flooding this game now, a guy who can box, post, nickel, everything, a hybrid. Do you think that is given what Jonathan Gannon does, is that an area that they should probably prioritize pretty high, either in free agency or the draft?
Absolutely. Barring, Rodney not coming back, I think the safety position is developing to probably one of the most positions on the field. You see the teams that are successful, the teams that are winning, teams that are in the playoffs, they have very good safety play. And it's because of the game, the way the game's changed. And it's for me, in my opinion, it's imperative if you want to have long-term success, if you want to really make it to the playoffs and get into the Super Bowl again, you have to have good safety play. So it's something, I don't know if it's first round, second round, free agency, they've got to address that position.
What year, Q, in Jim Johnson's system did you feel comfortable? Was it year 1, 2, 3, 4? Like, when did you feel like, okay, I'm getting it as a safety and I think I could flourish in it, which you eventually did?
Honestly, it took me probably to year 4 until I was comfortable. I was, as a free agent, we didn't get a whole lot of reps. But what I did learn is when I was playing scout team. So if you're not a starter, you're playing scout team. So what I would do is I would look at these cards. They would always have cards of our opposing team's defense, and the backups would run their defense. I would find out what the coverage was. Let's say it's cover 4, cover 2. And then I would just practice on my technique because everyone kind of runs the same type of coverage. So what I would do is I would say, okay, I'm supposed to play cover 2 here. Well, in my cover 2, even though I'm supposed to be playing it like, let's say the Saints cover 2, I would work on my own technique. And it took me a few years to develop those abilities and those strengths and weaknesses and understand myself to be able to play, to be able to start. And to be honest with you too, sometimes it just takes an opportunity, and I didn't really get many chances. I mean, you had Brian Dawkins and Mike Lewis and all those guys in front of me, so it took me a while to get a chance.
So I'm trying to think about the last, like Jim Johnson's defense compared to Schwartz's, compared to Gannon's. Like, Jim didn't do a ton of like post snap movement that I could recall. I mean, he might move players around, have a joker. Jim Schwartz did none of that. I mean, he was more static probably than you'd normally see. Front four rush, and when he blitzed, you kind of knew who was blitzing. And of course, Jonathan Gannon also doesn't blitz a lot, but he does do a lot of post snap movement. So, which you saw in the second half of the year even more. So when you look at all three, Q, and I know there's a little bias in there since you played for one of them and you love the guy, but the way the game is played today, which of those three styles do you think is the most the best strategy for the way the game is played today?
I think the best style is to have movement pre and post snap. So we did a lot of movement, pre snap. So we would show a cover 3 and then roll. We would show cover 2 and roll down. But I think the biggest answer, the best way to do it is kind of in between, because if you're constantly moving, number one, you're going to put yourself in a bad position. You could be down in the line and then, it's supposed to be flying to the middle, and you could be ended up getting beat on a deep throw because you're not in position. So I think kind of change it up by game, by position, change it up by situation as well. But I think as an absolute no, just constantly just lining up and staying in your coverage, constantly lining up and staying in your defense is the worst way to go about it. So I would say the best way is somewhere right in the middle, where you change it up. You could change it up by series as well too. You could make different moves around that way. So yeah.
Do you feel, Q, based on when you played to now and with the rule changes and obviously favoring passing, the league loves this, would it be much harder for you to play right now if you're 22, 23 years old compared to when you were young in 03 and 04 as a player because of the rule changes and how, teams just run up scores? Like, would it be much more of a challenge, you think?
I think it would be very difficult for me to play in today's game. We kind of started. We started when I was playing, and the rules started to change in terms of press coverage and making sure you can't jam within 5 yards. So that part of it probably isn't as big. Wouldn't be as big of an adjustment for me. I think the biggest one is how to tackle. I mean, I don't know how do you expect guys to tackle nowadays? I mean, a guy coming over the middle, Peyton Manning used to do it all the time. He was known for it. They'd send two seams, and he would just throw the ball right on the rope, right in between the safety, knowing that the safety's coming down hard, and this is going to be a huge collision. And in today's game, that's 15 yards. You get, one of those, you're getting the fines and all kinds of stuff. And so I don't know how I would be able to play in this game. I'll probably be kicked out about 3 or 4 games by now.
Who was it you that hit Austin Collie over the middle when you guys played the Peyton Manning and the Colts and put him out for a little bit?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Here's the crazy thing about that play. So we were in a cover 2 or quarters. Kurt Coleman was the other safety. We were in cover 2. They run 4 verticals seams. Peyton's staring it down. He bends right inside, makes a throw. Me and Kurt just smacked him, knocked him out. So we're like, I'm feeling bad. He gets stretchered out. They take his face mask off and they carry him off the field. The very next play, they ran the same exact route, and Peyton Manning threw the same play in the same way to the same guy. Not the same guy, but the same route. And I'm like, he really doesn't care about his receivers. I mean, I know he cares about them, but
I know what you're saying.
It's the same.
Is that a hospital ball? Would you call that a hospital ball? That's what they would call them.
Yeah.
I mean,
very literally.
Absolutely. If I'm the receiver and he threw that to me, I'd have went back. I know it's Peyton Manning, but I'd have probably said something to him.
Oh, wow. So, yeah. And, they may have made you into a weak side linebacker these days because you could tackle and you were good in the box.
That's where I started.
Yeah.
I started. So the way I started really getting on the field was in dime package, which is basically a wheel backer. And so I was basically a will backer for the first, couple years that I was getting some playing time.
Did they call that
What?
the jack when you played?
They
Sometimes I've
just
heard that called the jack backer too, but
they just called it. When they said dime. So dime is we take the Sam out, we take the will out.
right,
I go to will, and usually Jose Johansson would go to nickel.
right.
Jack is usually the defensive end to one side, and
Oh, okay.
sometimes we would go with Jack if we went to an odd coverage, which is 3-man front. So.
Sure.
Did you play corner in college, or were you always a safety? Just curious.
Yeah, I was always a safety. I was
Oh.
a corner in high school, but I got too big and too slow to play corner at the next level.
Is that why you weren't drafted?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't work out well. I had a couple of workouts. I flew into some teams and they measured me and all that stuff, but I wasn't a tall guy, and I wasn't a burner.
Do we have you seen any of the kids yet in college? Have you dived into any college tape, corner safety, anything like that?
Not yet. I haven't really. I mean, I watched the games, but I haven't really dove into possibilities here and there. So
All right.
I'll be ready. I'll be ready soon enough for that stuff.
All right. Well, Q&A. Everybody will have to watch Q&A when they get into their college evaluations, because I think corner and safety are going to be some positions that people around here are going to want your expertise on.
Absolutely.
Although I don't know why, because Eagles don't draft anybody, but well, corner mass, but safety.
Well, they need safeties, man. They have to do something, right? Come on.
They have to.
Gotta.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Great stuff, Q. Really appreciate the time. Thank you again. You can catch Q&A Thursdays, 6 a.m., although we may be moving that time now that we're in the off season, but it's up now on the platform, so everybody can check that one out. You guys had me in stitches, man. You guys were really chopping it up on a lot of things that were funny. So, before we get you out of here, give me your predictions for AFC, NFC championship games.
Oh, this is going to be a tough one. I think Kansas City, they're tough to beat at home. I got them winning. Even though I think the Bengals will probably put up a pretty good fight, I got the Chiefs winning. And then the Niners and the Rams, even though the Niners have the Rams number, I think it's tough to beat a team 6 times in a row. So I'm going to go with the Rams on this one. So we'll see the Chiefs and the Rams in a rematch of the Super Bowl.
All right, great. We'll get your Super Bowl pick next week then, or maybe in 2 weeks. Good stuff, Q. Thanks so much. For Adam Caplan, Quintin Mikell, I'm Geoff Mosher. Thanks for watching Inside the Birds TV.